Hi students, in this video we are going to see about the three generations of multi-computer and message passing mechanisms in Module 4. Let us go to the topic. The three generations of computer starts with the concept of the design choices involved while going to select a one processor technologies. What may be the choices we must give the preference for the multiple computer systems means first one is low cost. Low cost and medium grain processors. We know the meaning of grain and granularity that we have studied in the module 1 itself. So grain is nothing but the number of instructions required to do one process, one program. So this is called as grain size. So here while going to select the one multi-computer system, we must think about the cost of establishing a multi-computer and also the grain size of the processors. So these two considerations are considered as one building block for a one multi-computer system. And majority of the parallel computers are built with the standard of the self microprocessors technology only. And when you take one processor here, each processor has its own local memory unit, and these processors are communicating with the technology called as message passing or point-to-point direct networks. So here point-to-point direct networks is used rather than the concept of switching networks. And these control strategies uses the MIMD, MPMD and SMPD operations. So this diagram shows the first generations of multi-computer. It starts with the concept of parallel architecture. From the parallel architecture, it move on to low-cost processors. And when you take low-cost processor, each processor is having a shared memory. And from low-cost processor, it is moved to distributed memory. This distributed memory is having the technology of address switching. Then from distributed memory, it moves on to the message passing, where the SIMD processors uses the message passing technology. And now what we are using, the multi-computers are following the technologies of MIMD, MPMD and SPMD. So this diagram clearly shows the evolvement of the different technologies in first generation multi-computers. Then what is the present and future development in case of multi-computers means the next generations of multi-computer are evolved from medium to fine grained computers. So medium in the sense the lesser number of instructions are medium in average, but fine it is requires the lesser number of instructions. In order to execute one program, if it is a lesser number of instructions are required, that is that kind of computer and that kind of multi-computers are called as fine grained. And still the second generations of multi-computers are used in present technologies. And what are the basic examples of processors means i386 and i860 are the best examples of second generation multi-computers. What we are using in the third generation of multi-computers are VLSI implemented nodes. Okay, so the third generations of multi-computers uses the VLSI models. And this diagram shows the architecture of second generation multi-computers. So here these are the n number of nodes connected in a one multi-computer assembly. Here nodes are connected in a switching network technology. So here these all nodes are connected in a switch network technology, and here host computer is connected. So this host computer is connected with the outside world using the Ethernet connections, and centralized file system is used. Here homogeneous nodes are used to make hypercube multi-computer networks, and with this multi-computer assembly is used to solve the large scale problems efficiently. Okay. So this is called as a second generation computer, and we are going to see the table called the generations of multi-computer with some features. The first feature is its era. The first generation computer starts in the years between 83 to 87. Second generation lies between 88 to 92, and third generation lies between 93 to 97. And when you take one typical node in a multi-computer assembly, the MIPS rate in first generation is 1, and in the second generation it is increased to 10, and in third generation it is increased to 100. Similarly, M-flops is nothing but million floating point operations in scalar unit. Is in first generation is 0.1 and it is increased to 2. In this again rapidly increases to 40 in third generation. Similarly, memory size is also 4.5. It is increased to 4 and 32 in third generation. When you take one typical multi-computer system, how many number of nodes can be connected in first generation means 64, whereas in second generation it is 256. It allows 256 systems can be connected togetherly. In third generation it moves to 1024 nodes. Okay, then MIPS rate in first generation is 64, in second generation is 2560 and third generation is 100K. Similarly, memory bytes is here 32, 1K and 2K. And communication latency here it should be reduced because latency is a one default delay time, so it should not be more. So when you take the first generation computer, the latency in within the neighborhood is measured in microseconds as 2000. In non-local it is measured as 6000, but whereas in second and third generation is rapidly reduced to 5 and 1. Okay, so I hope you understand this topic. Then we move on to message passing mechanisms, where message passing mechanisms in a multi-computer needs a special hardware and software support, and it uses the two routine schemes. One is store and forward routine scheme, another one is wormhole routine scheme. And in store and forward routine scheme, packets are the smallest unit, but in wormhole routine scheme, the packet is again divided into fixed number of flits. Okay, so we will see the diagram how the message will look and how it is divided into number of packets. From packets, how it is divided into number of flits. So the topmost one is that message part. From when you take one message, it consists of number of packets. So these packets are divided into number of fixed and number of flits. So here how these flits can be identified means there will be one header flit will be there. This header flit will contains the information of source, destination and routing information. Likewise, the next packet will be identified. Here in store and forward routing, packets are the basic unit of information, and where each node uses the packet buffer. Here it is uses the buffer. That's what it is called as store and forward. How the data is transferred in store and forward, I will tell you now. Then latency is directly proportional to the distance between the source and destination. Here latency, the distance between the source and destination, based on the distance, the latency will be vary. It will vary. In wormhole, again the packet is reduced to number of flits. All the flits of the same packet are transmitted in an inseparable sequence. Inseparable means it should not be splitted. It should be continuously and sequentially should be transmitted, and it should be executed in a pipelined fashion. Okay. Then in case only the header flit knows where the packet is going. We know the meaning of header flit. Header flit only consists of source information, destination information and routing information. Here this diagram shows the store and forward routing and wormhole routing. Here the first diagram shows store and forward. Why it is called as store and forward means first it stores the information in the intermediate node. Once the information is stored and it is the next path of destination is identified, then only it will forward it to the next node. So that's what it is called as a store and forward node. So it uses the packet buffer in each of its nodes. When you take 5 nodes, from source node 1 to its destination node is 5 means it should go to the remaining intermediate node. In all intermediate nodes, using the packet buffer, it should be stored. Then if the next node is identified, its path is clear only, then it will be forwarded to the next node. So likewise, it is for operating. That's what it is called as a store and forward. And here the second type is wormhole routing. It uses the flit buffer instead of packet buffer, because packets are the smallest unit in store and forward, but in wormhole routing flit is the smallest unit. So it uses the flit buffer, and using the intermediate nodes it is forwarding. Then asynchronous pipelining. What happens in the asynchronous way of pipelining means, asynchronous, we know the meaning of asynchronous. Whenever the communication is happening in asynchronous, that handshake protocol is the. So we know the meaning of asynchronous pipelining. Whenever the asynchronous pipelining is kind of transaction is happening, handshaking protocol is the best technology used for transmitting one data from one sender to another receiver. Fine. So here these are the 4 important steps to be followed in asynchronous pipelining. What happens in the first step means D is the destination and S is the source. So from the router source, the data should be passed to router D. So when D is ready to receive your flit only, it will be followed. Here it uses a one signal line called as R and A, ready and accept line. It shows the ready and accept. So when the D is ready, the RA signal will be turned into low. In the second step, S is ready to send a flit. So when the destination is ready, then source will start its sending. So it is happened in the second step. And the third step, flit J, that means at present the flit J is going to be sent from source to destination. So on the third step, the flit is received by D, and what happens in the fourth step means the next step. So next flit should be start sending. So at that time what happens, the flit present flit should be removed from D's buffer, and it should ready to accept the next flit from the source. So these are the 4 important steps should be followed in the asynchronous pipelining. Okay, coming to latency analysis of both techniques, store and forward uses the maximum time to send one data from one node to another node. Here there are 4 nodes. In this example, there are 4 nodes are used: N1, N2, N3, N4. Starting from N1 node to N4 node. Here it uses the one, because why it is taking maximum time means once it is stored in the intermediate one, then only it will be forward to the next node. So likewise, it is not following in a pipeline fashion. So that's what the time taken is more in this store and forward, whereas in wormhole routing, this is done with the help of flits in a pipelined fashion. So how the pipeline fashion will be working on, it is in parallel way. So that's what the time taken in this wormhole routing is lesser. Flow control strategies. So packet collision routing, there are 2 kinds of flow control strategies are followed here. One is packet collision routing and another one is dimension order routing. So packet collision is the main challenge of cooperative routing with multiple flows using the cooperative routing and algorithm. It minimizes the collision probability. In dimension, it limits the set of legal paths. I will show the packet collision routing technique. There are 4 different approaches are followed. First one is virtual cut-through routing. So first approach is, first we are buffering, and when the packet is stored in the packet buffer, it will be cut and it should be sent to the other channel after it's received from the packet buffer. So this is what happened in the virtual cut-through routing. And second routing is the blocking flow control. Blocking flow control in the sense using one more additional devices called as gate. If packet 1 is received and the packet buffer, if at the same time packet 2 wants to attempt the packet buffer, means using the gate external devices, it is blocked. And third one is discord and transmission. So using the external gate devices, instead of blocking it, it will be discarded and it will be retransmitted again. The fourth one is D2 after being blocked. So this is the another one extension of the third time. What will happen here, instead of discarding and retransmitting again, it is directed into the another route. So that's what it is called as D2. These are the 4 different approaches followed in the packet collision routing technologies. And the second one is dimension order routing. Dimension order routing, it follows the hypercube routing scheme. So in the hypercube, what happens, using the high number of hypercube assembly only, this will be forwarded. Say for example, in this example, 0110 is the source, and it should go to the 11001 as a destination. Means if these routes are given here, these are the intermediate nodes, this has to be followed here. So likewise, it follows the hypercube assembly for transmitting one data from one router to another route, right? I hope you understand this logic. I'll catch you in the next video about next topic. Thank you.